our regional branch leader, Bob Wilson, to come up and say a few words. Please make welcome.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Bob Wilson's my name. I retired farmer. I was a cattle farmer up near the Lancelin area for 40-odd or 30-odd years. I started off with sheep, and some people who are old enough might remember the wall crash that came, and we buried 3,500 sheep when they were worth nothing. So I moved into cattle, and the rest is history. Semi-retired now. Although I'd started to move away, I'll just give you a quick background of where I come from, because I think it's important. I'm just an ordinary bloke, and I just decided to throw my one Gerard's party, and I'll just give you a quick idea of how I got there. I'd always been a National Party supporter. Mum and Dad were National Party supporters very strongly in their day, and well, I just followed on until they started supporting net zero, because I'm a climate skeptic, and I follow a blog site called Joanne Nova, who is one of the top bloggers, climate skeptic bloggers in Australia and probably in the world. And I guess from a political point of view, I followed Craig Kelly. So that led me down the path of the few elections, a couple of elections ago, where I supported the UAP. Look, it was interesting that we had a really good candidate in our electorate, the Hasluck, but we didn't get past you're Clive Palmer's party, we don't want to vote for you. So that was it was a wake-up call. And then COVID sort of hit very strongly. We decided not to get involved and get vaccinated, and so we stood out. I managed to convince my daughter and son-in-law and my son-in-law's couple of older kids to not get vaccinated. And as all of you know the story of families and things, a son and his wife decided they'd get a couple of vaccines because they wanted to go to the pub with their mates, and they wanted to travel overseas. And as it turned out, they weren't able to travel overseas, and they couldn't get couldn't go out with their mates to the pub anyway for a while there. So they're definitely awake now and regret that decision, but that's the way it was. So at the last state election, I supported Sophia Mormont and the Independents because of her stand, and Sophia was as many of you will know, was with the legalised cannabis crew, but then when COVID came, she started speaking out against it. And it's interesting that she was told by her party, you can't speak out about anything else other than legalised cannabis. So she ended up being thrown out of the party and went as an independent, and I supported her at the last state election. It was an interesting time. Again, I'm starting to feel a little bit like Don Quixote, tilting at windmills and never getting there. But then the federal election came. Gerard Rennick, I'd followed him through his trials and tribulations in the Senate and with the Liberal Party. And when he got shafted by the Liberal Party, that was just ridiculous and disgraceful. So I hitched my star to Jody. Was one of the Senate candidates here in Western Australia, and I strongly supported and spent a lot of time handing out how to vote cards for Jody at the last election. After that election, and look, to be honest, we were disappointed, but not surprised at the numbers of votes we got here, especially in Western Australia, where it was a new party. We had a couple of weeks. We didn't even have T-shirts or things until the last minute. So it was to be expected. But Jody, being Jody, decided that she would... Gerard's party was such a good idea that it needed to be... More work needed to be done in Western Australia. And so she started to form the West Australian branch, and I looked around and said, I've got to do something. I've got to help. And so I said to Jody, I'll help, but I'll sort of, I don't want to be just in a branch committee or whatever. I'd like to help at the state level. And so she said, well, you're a rural background. How about you become the rural branch coordinator? So I sort of thought, oh, okay. I looked up the statistics, and there's 3 supposed rural electorates in Western Australia. I thought that's pretty good. You know, only 3 electorates. That can't be much work. Told my wife, and she was pretty impressed. So I've put my hand up for that. And I had been, I don't know whether any of you are from a rural background, but I was chairman of a group called the Evergreen Group, which was a statewide group trying to help farmers. And so I sort of had a bit of an idea. I've got a few contacts around the state. Once I got started, Jody seemed to come up and say, actually, it'd be really good if you take on being the WA State branch coordinator. Oh, righto. Okay, so I thought about that and thought, yeah, righto. So so that's my role at the moment, and I'm still married. My 50-year anniversary is coming up, and I'm hoping in about another 2 months, I'm hoping that I'll stay married for that long, at least, to get that one out of the way. So you can see it's a challenge, but I've got grandchildren now. My daughter has had our first and probably only grandchild, and it makes you think what the future, and it's just great to see these young guys here that have put their hand up and are going to stand up for the young people, and we all need to get behind them. Just quickly, because I don't want to spend too much time because Gerard's the main man, but I just thought out of interest, you probably haven't thought about it, but there's actually 16 electorates in Western Australia. 3 are officially rural electorates. There's 7 outer metropolitan and 6 inner, so that goes 16 electorates altogether. Just out of interest, Curtin electorate, 92 square kilometres. That's an inner city, inner metro electorate. 92 square kilometres, that's a big area. And then we've got Durack, which is a rural electorate, 1,410,000 square kilometres. And the 3 rural electorates, which are Forrest and O'Connor and Durack, are all got Liberal Party people in they've won in their position. The 7 outer metro and the 6 inner metro, except for 1, are all Labor. And that one, of course, is the independent, Kate Chaney, who's, I think she's in that Curtin electorate of 92 square kilometres. So, yeah, it's interesting. So, look, I could go on, but I guess what I want to say is that rural people are no different from anyone else. They want leadership. And we know that there's no leadership in the Libs and the Labs and the Nats. I had a stand-up argument with, what's the Nats guy that's supposed to be the leader of the Little Proud? At the last election, I was handing out how to vote cards for Jody, and he came over because they were supporting Mia Davies, trying to have a big rah-rah for Mia in Bullwinkle. And I just sidled up to him and said, look, I used to be a national supporter, but I can't support you guys while you support net zero. And if you're supposedly supporting farmers, there's only 2 ways that they can cut down their emissions. The cropping guys have got to cut out diesel. That's all there is to it. The livestock guys have got to cut out livestock because too much methane. So how are you doing a good thing for your electorate? And he said, oh, you just don't understand. You see, we've got international agreements that we've signed up to, that we have to have targets. And if we don't meet these targets, they'll put tariffs on us. And I said, are you telling me that as a sovereign country, we are being told by international bodies what targets we've got to meet and what we've got to do? And he said, oh, you just don't understand. If you joined up the National Party, you could come along to our party meetings and you'd learn about it. So anyway, I left him at that. Well, as you know, the Nats and now the Liberals have dropped net zero. But that person is still leader of the Nationals. And the leader of the Liberal Party, who also said that they need to support net zero, but now they've rolled that idea, she's still leader of the Liberals. So what does that tell you? And they still haven't dropped the Paris Accord. Why would you not do that if you want to drop net zero? This is the crazy thing. Well, Gerard will talk more about that. Climate change, and I'll finish on this one, is it was supposed to, basically, we were going to all starve because the farming industry was going to be badly affected. And pretty much we well, I had just some cattle on a property up near Gingin, which is owned by a guy who is the manager of the GRDC, which is the Grains Research and Development Corporation. So he's a cropping guy, and he was telling me that their research money they get from a levy from grains, from every tonne of grain that comes in. And normally they have enough money from the levies to do their research on new varieties of grain or whatever. And they sort of try and marry it up. The last 5 years, unfortunately, have been so good that they've now got too much money. I think it's about 800 million or something like that. I forget, don't quote me on that. It's a lot of money that they've got now because our crops have been so good. So this is the rubbish that we're being fed, this climate change stuff. And there's, to give Malcolm Roberts his due, he has been a climate change sceptic for many years, well before he was a One Nation senator. But Gerard is probably the only one that was in the parliament who could succinctly challenge the rubbish that was being put out. And that was why I decided to support Gerard. Obviously, his questioning about the crap that was going on with COVID and that side of things was also a very strong reason why I support them. I mean, I'll finish on this. I am a social member of the Umbrella Group, which is a group of people that have been protesting out in front of the Governor's house. And there's some of them here tonight. And at this stage, obviously, the Governor's never going to change and kick the principle. And these guys have stood for over 3 years. Some of them, most of them. And I'd go in on a Saturday morning and join them for a couple of hours, and then we go and have a cup of coffee and have a good chat. And I appreciate their friendship. I appreciate their strength of character. And we've got to back Gerard because he's the one who can take us into the future. Cheers.
Thanks, Bob.